We found your number listed as the primary emergency contact. The patient is pregnant, critical, and unresponsive.
What?
The vibration of the phone against his ribs felt less like a notification and more like the click of a loaded gun, a violent jolt that snapped Kang Do-hyun out of the numb, suffocating trance he had been floating in for hours. He stood at the altar of the Grand Hyatt Seoul, a fortress of glass, marble, and terrifying expectations designed to intimidate rather than welcome. He was encased in a bespoke Italian tuxedo that cost more than most families earned in a decade, a stiff armor of silk and Kevlar that felt like it was slowly crushing his lungs. Beside him stood Yoon-jae, the heiress to the Hansung clan, a woman who looked less like a bride and more like a porcelain doll, beautiful, fragile, and completely hollow. This was not a wedding. This was a blood pact. It was the truce of the century masquerading as a celebration of love. 300 of South Korea's most elite, dangerous, and judgmental eyes were bored into his back. He could feel the weight of his father's cold smirk from the front row, a physical pressure on his spine. He could feel the crushing expectation of the syndicate resting on his shoulders. The air smelled of expensive lilies and old money, a cloying scent that barely masked the metallic tang of violence. Jae looked up at him, her expression a mask of perfect, obedient anxiety, waiting for the vows that would seal their fate, waiting for him to say the words that would lock the prison door forever. But Do-hyun wasn't looking at her. He wasn't looking at the priest. He was staring at the unknown number glowing on his screen, a beacon of chaos in a room of orchestrated order. Do-hyun SSI. Jae whispered, her voice trembling with confusion, barely audible over the soft classical music. What are you doing? The guests, your father. He didn't apologize. He didn't hesitate. The world around him, the flowers, the guards in black suits, the heavy velvet drapes, blurred into a meaningless smudge of color. He slid his thumb across the glass, answering the call in the middle of his own wedding vows. This is Kang Do-hyun. Sir, we have a woman admitted here at Asin Medical Center. Name, Amaka Okoye. She is roughly 32 weeks pregnant and collapsed outside the arrivals terminal. She has been unconscious for 20 minutes. We found your contact saved as my heart in her emergency list. Are you family? We need immediate consent for surgical intervention. The massive, chandelier-lit ballroom seemed to tilt on its axis. The gravity in the room shifted. The air left his lungs in a rush. Amaka. Pregnant? 32 weeks? Do-hyun felt his knees unlock, the marble floor swaying beneath him like the deck of a ship in a typhoon. Pause with me for a second. The woman he loves is dying, carrying a child he didn't know existed, while he stands at the altar to secure a gang alliance with another woman. Before we find out if they survive this, drop a comment right now telling me where you are watching from and smash that subscribe button. You need to hit subscribe to know what happens next because this story is about to shatter your heart. The same Amaka who had vanished into the ether 7 months ago without a single goodbye? The same woman he had allowed to walk out of his life because he was too cowardly to defy the family? The woman who haunted every dream he had, every silence in his empty penthouse, every signature he placed on a death warrant disguised as a contract? Sir? Sir, are you there? We are losing her rhythm. Where is she? His voice was a strangled rasp, unrecognizable even to himself, a sound torn from the deepest part of his soul. Emergency room 3. Sir, time is running out. We need... Do-hyun let the phone slip from his fingers. It clattered against the marble, the sound echoing like a gunshot in the silent hall. The noise shattered the spell. He looked at Jae, who was staring at him with wide, horrified eyes, her perfectly applied makeup unable to hide the terror of public humiliation. He looked at his parents, statues of elite brutality, their smiles faltering into confusion. And then, he turned his back on the future they had built for him. Do-hyun. His father's voice was a thunderclap, booming through the vaulted ceiling, vibrating with the authority of a dawn who had never been disobeyed. Kang Do-hyun, you take one more step and you are finished. Do you hear me? Dead to this family. But Do-hyun was already moving. He was already gone. His dress shoes skidded on the polished floor as he sprinted toward the heavy oak doors, tearing the silk bow tie from his neck as if it were a noose. Behind him, the perfect wedding disintegrated into absolute chaos, shouts of outrage, the crash of a fainting guest, the wail of his mother as she realized the alliance was shattering. None of it registered. The only thing that existed was the terrifying reality that Amaka was in Seoul. She was carrying his child, and she was dying. Their story hadn't begun in chaos, but in the quiet, sterile hum of a classroom just months ago, one of the few neutral grounds his family operated. It seemed like a lifetime had passed since that morning. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Advanced Negotiation English for Executives. I am your instructor, Amaka Okoye, but in this room, you can simply call me Amaka. The voice had been the first thing to catch him. It was rich, textured, and commanded authority without raising in volume. Do-hyun had barely looked up from his tablet, the blue light reflecting in his bored eyes. He sat in the back row of the executive training suite at Kang Holdings, surrounded by mid-level lieutenants who were terrified of him. He didn't need to be here. He was the VP of International Operations, a Stanford graduate who dreamed in English. But the council had mandated this training to legitimize their fronts, and he was nothing if not a dutiful son, playing the role of the clean businessman. However, the woman at the front of the room demanded attention in a way corporate trainers never did. She was radiant, her presence filling the grayscale room with color. Her skin glowed against a vibrant mustard yellow blazer that seemed to challenge the dreary uniformity of the underworld setting. Her hair was styled in intricate braids that crowned her head like royalty, and her eyes held a spark of intelligence that missed nothing. She moved with a grace that suggested she was comfortable in her own skin, a rarity in a building full of people pretending they weren't criminals. Do-hyun raised his hand, cutting her off before she could finish her introduction. He was irritable, tired of the games his father made him play. "Excuse me, Ms. Okoye. I believe there has been an administrative error. I do not require remedial language training." The room went deathly silent. The air conditioning hummed loudly in the void. The other men shrank into their chairs, avoiding eye contact. "You did not speak to the instructor that way, but you certainly didn't correct the prince of the syndicate." Amaka didn't flinch. She didn't stutter. She simply arched an eyebrow, a small, amused smile playing on her lips, as if she were watching a child throw a tantrum. You must be Kang Do-hyun, the Stanford graduate." "Correct," Do-hyun replied, leaning back in his chair, radiating arrogance. "I have been fluent since childhood. This is a waste of my time and the family's resources." "Stanford is impressive," Amaka said, her voice smooth like jazz, walking slowly down the center aisle toward him. The click of her heels was the only sound in the room. "Tell me then, Mr. Kang, since you are a master of the language, what is the fundamental difference between empathy and sympathy in a high-stakes turf negotiation?" Do-hyun scoffed, rolling his eyes. "Simple. Sympathy is feeling pity for someone's misfortune. Empathy is the ability to understand their feelings." "Textbook definition," Amaka said, stopping right in front of his desk. She leaned down, invading his personal bubble, forcing him to look at her. "And completely useless on the streets." She held his gaze, her eyes searching his. "In your last failed sit-down with the German faction, yes, I did my research. You told the opposing boss that you sympathized with his hesitation regarding the territory split. You used that exact word. Do you know what he heard?" Do-hyun's jaw tightened. The mention of the German deal was a sore spot. It almost started a war. "He heard that I understood his position." "No. He heard that you pitted him," Amaka corrected, her voice firm but not unkind. "He heard that you, the wealthy heir, looked down on his smaller operation with charity. He heard arrogance. That is why they walked away. That is why they allied with your rival 3 days later." The silence in the room was so thick it felt physical. Do-hyun felt a flush of heat rise up his neck, a mix of anger and embarrassment. He was never corrected. He was never wrong. "How could you possibly know that?" "Because I was the communication consultant for the German team," Amaka said, her smile widening into something victorious yet teaching. "You speak English like a textbook, Mr. Kang. You speak it perfectly. But I teach people to speak English like a human being who understands the soul of the person holding the gun across the table." Language is not just vocabulary. It is culture, it is history, it is power dynamics. She turned on her heel and walked back to the whiteboard, her yellow blazer a beacon of confidence. The door is behind you. You are free to leave. But if you stay, you might actually learn how to close a deal without starting a war. Do-hyun sat there, stunned. He was humiliated, yes, but beneath the bruised ego was something he hadn't felt in years: intrigue. Someone had challenged him. Someone had seen through the suit and the title and called him out on his emptiness. He didn't leave. He opened his notebook. Over the next 3 weeks, Amaka systematically dismantled his ego. She forced him into role-playing scenarios where his arrogance cost him millions in lives. She critiqued not his grammar, but his tone, his subtext, the cold distance he kept from everyone around him. She was brilliant, she was relentless, and she was the most fascinating person he had ever met. She didn't treat him like a prince, she treated him like a student with potential. After the final session, the room cleared out. Do-hyun lingered, packing his bag slowly, waiting for the others to disappear. "Mr. Kang," Amaka said without looking up from her laptop, her fingers flying across the keys. "If you are waiting to contest your final evaluation, save your breath. You passed. Barely. I want to take you to dinner." That made her stop typing. She looked up, her eyes narrowing slightly, assessing him. "Excuse me, dinner. As an apology for being an arrogant prick on the first day. And as a thank you. You are the first person in 5 years who hasn't been afraid to tell me I'm wrong to my face." Amaka studied him, searching for the lie, searching for the game. "I don't date students, Mr. Kang. And I definitely don't date clients. Class is over. I just graduated," Do-hyun said, stepping closer. "And I will fire myself as your client effective immediately. I also don't date men with blood on their hands. I am not interested in your world, Mr. Kang." "Good," Do-hyun said, a genuine smile breaking through his usual stoic mask, transforming his face into something boyish and hopeful. "Because I'm not trying to buy your time. I'm asking to earn it. Just one civilian dinner." Amaka hesitated, the silence stretching between them. She looked at his hands, then his eyes. She saw something there, a loneliness that mirrored her own distance from home. She softened. "One dinner. But if you mention your business, your father, or your territory even once, I am walking out." "Deal." That one dinner turned into a revelation. It was supposed to be a formality, but it became an awakening. Do-hyun found himself talking about things he had buried deep inside, his passion for black and white photography, a hobby his father had crushed as weakness. He told her about the pressure, the suffocating weight of being the heir to a criminal empire. Amaka spoke of her dream to build a linguistics academy in Lagos, to give underprivileged children the tools to navigate the global stage. She spoke of her family in Enugu, the noise, the love, the food. They debated 90s R&B versus K-pop, they laughed over terrible appetizers, and they discovered a shared love for the stillness of the mountains at dawn. "You are not who I expected," Amaka admitted 3 hours later, as they shared a dessert, the candle on the table flickering between them. "Who did you expect? A thug in a suit. Cold, calculating, empty." She reached across the table, her fingers grazing his hand, sending a jolt of electricity up his arm. "You're actually kind. And lonely." "You're terrifying," Do-hyun countered, his heart hammering against his ribs in a rhythm he didn't recognize. "Terrifying. In the best way. You don't look at me and see the air. You see, just me. Do you know how rare that is? Everyone I meet fears me or wants something from me. You just want me to be better. Maybe you need to change your circle," she whispered, her eyes holding his. Dinner became late-night drives along the Han River, watching the city lights reflect on the water. Drives became weekends hiking Sierraksen, breathing in the crisp mountain air, away from the smoke and shadows. 3 months later, Kang Do-hyun was in love. Not the polite, arranged affection he was used to, but a terrifying, all-consuming fire. Amaka made him feel alive. She dragged him to Afrobeat clubs in Itaewon, teaching him to move his hips in ways his ancestors never intended, laughing when he stumbled. She stripped away the underboss and found the man. "I love you," He told her one rainy Tuesday, tangled in the sheets of her small apartment, the world outside forgotten. The rain battered against the window, but inside it was warm and safe. I have never said that and meant it. Not until now. I love you too, Amaka whispered, tracing the line of his jaw with her thumb. But Do-hyun, your family. They will never accept this. They will never accept me. I am everything they hate, civilian, foreign, outspoken, not of their blood. They will learn, he promised, kissing her forehead, believing his own naivety. I will make them understand. They just need to meet you. Once they see you, how could they not love you? He was wrong. He was so tragically wrong. The introduction to his parents was a psychological massacre. His mother took one look at Amaka, her skin, her hair, her confidence, and built a wall of ice so thick it dropped the room's temperature to 0. They sat in the formal dining room of the Kang estate, a room that felt more like a courtroom than a home. So, Chairman Kang said, sitting at the head of the mahogany table like a godfather sentencing a traitor. He didn't even look at Amaka. He looked through her. You're a tutor? I am a linguistic consultant, sir, Amaka corrected gently, her posture perfect, refusing to shrink. And your family? Who are they? Who are your people? My father is a pastor in Enugu. My mother is a nurse. They are good, hard-working people. Chairman Kang placed his silverware down with a sharp clink that echoed in the silence. I see. Civilians. No bodies. Do-hyun, his mother said, her voice trembling with suppressed rage. We need to speak. In the study. Now. Behind the closed heavy oak doors of his father's study, the veneer of civility vanished. Have you lost your mind? His mother hissed, gripping the edge of the desk until her knuckles turned white. A foreigner? A black woman? A nobody? Are you trying to destroy our reputation? She is the woman I love, Do-hyun argued, his voice shaking but defiant. She is brilliant, she is kind, and she makes me happy. Love. His father laughed, a cruel, barking sound that stripped Do-hyun of his dignity. You think you have the luxury of love? You are the heir to the Kang syndicate. Your marriage is a strategic alliance, not a romance novel. You are nearly 30. You need a wife who brings territory and soldiers, not a charity case. I can make my own choices. I am a grown man. Not while you sit in my chair, wear the clothes I pay for, and run the operations I built. Chairman Kang slammed his fist on the desk, rattling the expensive crystal decanters. The council is already whispering that you are soft. If you bring that woman into this family, we will be the laughingstock of the underworld. End it. Or I will cut you loose. No protection. No money. No rank. You will be on the street with nothing but your love and a target on your back. Do-hyun tried to find a middle ground. He moved Amaka into a luxury apartment in Gangnam, hidden from his parents' prying eyes. He tried to live two lives, the dutiful underboss by day, wearing the mask of the heir, and the devoted lover by night. He promised her he was working on them, that he just needed time to soften his father's heart, to show them her value. But secrets are poison to love. They rot the foundation until the house collapses. 6 months in, the breaking point arrived. Amaka was a keynote speaker at a global innovation conference, the same conference where the Kang Group was launching a legitimate tech front. Do-hyun should have been in the front row cheering for her. Instead, he was forced into a photo op with Yoon-jae, the daughter of the rival Hansung clan. The next morning, the tabloids were plastered with headlines. Is a clan alliance on the horizon for Kang heir and Hansung princess? The photo showed Do-hyun and Jae laughing, looking like the perfect power couple. Amaka threw the newspaper onto the kitchen counter. Her eyes were red, her hands trembling. Is this what you've been doing? She asked, her voice quiet and deadly. While I sit in this golden cage you put me in, waiting for you to come home, you are out there auditioning my replacement? Amaka, please. It was a setup. My father forced me into the seat. It means nothing. I didn't even know they were taking photos. It means everything, Do-hyun. You never say no to him. You hide me like a shameful secret while you parade around with her. I am not a mistress. I am not a dirty little secret to be kept in the dark. You know how dangerous this is. I am trying to protect us. It isn't dangerous, it's cowardly, she screamed, tears finally spilling over. Love is simple. Courage is simple. You either choose me, publicly and completely, or you let me go. I cannot live in the shadows anymore. Do-hyun opened his mouth to argue, to beg for more time, but the words died in his throat. The fear of losing his position, the fear of his father's wrath, choked him. He looked at her, beautiful and broken, and he froze. The silence stretched between them, heavy and suffocating. I need more time, he whispered, a coward's plea. Time is up. Amaka grabbed her suitcase, which was already packed by the door. I can't love a man who is too afraid to fight for me. Amaka, don't. Goodbye, Do-hyun. He let her go. He stood there like a statue and let the love of his life walk out the door. 2 weeks of hell followed. He couldn't eat. He couldn't sleep. He realized that no empire was worth this emptiness. He decided he would damn the consequences. He bought a ring, simple, elegant gold with an intricate Nigerian pattern etched into the band. He went to her apartment at dawn, ready to propose, ready to burn his inheritance to the ground for her. The apartment was empty. No clothes. No books. No trace of her shea butter scent. Just a key on the counter and a letter. Do-hyun. I cannot be the woman who destroys your relationship with your family. I cannot be the reason you lose your birthright. And I cannot keep breaking my own heart waiting for you to be brave. You are a good man trapped in a bad world. I am going back home to Lagos. Please, do not look for me. Let us both find peace. I love you. I always will. Amaka. He collapsed on the floor of that empty apartment and wept until his throat bled. In the months that followed, Kang Do-hyun died. The man who loved jazz and hiking and laughed with his whole chest disappeared. In his place was a cold, efficient machine. He did exactly what was expected. He expanded the territories. He accepted the engagement to Yoon to secure the alliance. He became the perfect soldier. But inside, he was rotting. He hired private investigators, but Amaka had covered her tracks well. They traced her to Lagos, but lost the trail. She didn't want to be found. And now, running through the lobby of the Grand Hyatt, colliding with confused bellboys and terrified guests, Do-hyun finally understood. The numbness was gone. The pain was back, and it was searing. Amaka hadn't just left with a broken heart. She had left with a secret. She had carried his child for 8 months alone to protect him. To protect the baby from his father's world. He burst out of the hotel doors, the humid Seoul air hitting his face. He ignored his sleek black armored limousine and the driver who was waiting. He ran into the street, flagging down a taxi like a madman, his tuxedo shirt torn, his eyes wild. Asen Medical Center, he screamed at the driver as he threw himself into the back seat. Drive. I'll pay you triple if you get me there in 20 minutes. Just drive. As the taxi tore through the streets of Seoul, weaving through traffic, Do-hyun gripped the door handle, his knuckles white. He prayed to a god he hadn't spoken to in years. Don't take her. Please don't take her. Take everything else. Take the money, the syndicate, the name. Just let her live. Let me tell her I'm sorry. But fate, cruel and unpredictable, was not done with him yet. What Do-hyun didn't know, what he couldn't possibly know as the taxi wove frantically through the dense Seoul traffic, was that Amaka hadn't just left with a broken heart. She had left with a secret that terrified her more than leaving him had. 2 weeks after returning to the humid, familiar heat of Lagos, amidst the comfort of her family, but the agony of her loss, she had stared at a plastic stick in her bathroom. 2 pink lines. A positive pregnancy test. She had sat on the cold tiles of her bathroom floor, clutching the stick as if it were a grenade. A baby. Do-hyun's baby. A child made of equal parts Nigerian resilience and Korean danger. Her first instinct had been to call him. Her thumb had hovered over his name, trembling. She wanted to tell him. She wanted him to hold her. But then the image of him sitting next to Yoon flashed in her mind. She remembered his father's cruel words about legacy and bloodlines. She remembered the way Do-hyun had looked when he said he needed more time. If I tell him, she had reasoned, pacing her small living room while her best friend, Chidinma, watched with concern, he will feel obligated. He is a man of duty. He will marry me out of guilt, and he will resent me for it. Or worse, his father. What about his father? Chidinma had asked. The chairman has billions of dollars and an army of killers, Amaka whispered, her hand instinctively covering her flat stomach. If he finds out I am carrying the Kang heir, he could take this baby from me. He could argue I am unfit, that I am foreign, that I cannot provide the safety a Kang needs. I would be nothing but an incubator to them. I will not let my child be raised in a cold fortress, seen as a mistake or a bargaining chip. But Amaka, it's his child, Chidinma argued gently. He has a right to know. Does he? Amaka countered, tears streaming down her face. He had a right to fight for me too. And he didn't. He chose his family's peace over our future. He chose the tower and the title. I will not let my child be a casualty of his cowardice. So she carried the secret. She carried the grief and the new life alone. She felt the first flutter of kicks and didn't have his hand to place on her belly. She went to ultrasounds alone, staring at the grainy black and white image of the tiny life growing inside her, wishing he was there, and hating herself for wishing it. But fate has a cruel, unavoidable sense of humor. It drags us back to the places we try to escape. At 32 weeks pregnant, swollen and exhausted, Amaka received a call that shattered her sanctuary. Her mother, who had been visiting a specialist in Seoul for a heart condition, had suffered a severe stroke. She might not make it through the night. Her sister had sobbed over the phone. She's at Asin Medical Center. Amaka didn't think. She didn't calculate the risk. She didn't care that Seoul was the city of her heartbreak. She booked the first flight out. The journey was grueling. Her ankles swelled to twice their size, her back screamed in protest, and the stress of her mother's condition spiked her blood pressure dangerously high. She landed at Incheon Airport, exhausted, dizzy, and disoriented. She hauled herself into a taxi, giving the driver the hospital address in perfect Korean, her voice shaking. But as she stepped out onto the curb at Asin Medical Center, the world spun. The stress, the preeclampsia she hadn't known was ravaging her body, and the sheer physical toll collided. The ground rushed up to meet her. Darkness took her. And the last thing she whispered before the lights went out was his name. Do-hyun. Now, Do-hyun burst through the automatic doors of the emergency room, a whirlwind of torn silk and desperation. He looked like a madman. His hair was wild, his expensive shoes scuffed, his face pale with terror. Amaka Okoye, he shouted at the nurse's station, slamming his hand on the counter. Where is she? Sir, you cannot be back here. I am the father. Where is she? His voice cracked, losing its authority and replacing it with pure, raw panic. A doctor in blue scrubs hurried over, looking harried. Mr. Kang? You're the emergency contact. Is she alive? Do-hyun grabbed the doctor by the shoulders. Tell me she is alive. She is stable, but barely. She has severe preeclampsia. Her blood pressure is critical, and the baby is in distress. We need to perform an emergency C-section immediately. Every second we wait, the risk to both of them increases. Then do it. Why haven't you done it? She is refusing anesthesia, the doctor said, looking helpless. She is panicked. She is delirious. She keeps asking for you. She says she won't sign the consent form until she sees you. She needs to know you came. Take me to her. Now. They led him down a sterile hallway, the smell of antiseptic burning his nostrils. They pushed open the doors to a trauma room. The beeping of monitors was deafening, a frantic rhythm that matched his own heart. And there she was. Amaka looked so small in the hospital bed, wires and tubes snaking around her like vines. Her face was swollen, her eyes wide and terrified, darting around the room. But when she saw him, disheveled, panting, looking like he had run through fire to get to her, her thrashing stopped. Her shoulders slumped. Do-hyun, she whispered, her voice a broken reed. He crossed the room in 2 strides and fell to his knees beside the bed, grabbing her hand. It was cold. He pressed it against his cheek, wetting her skin with his tears. I'm here, he choked out. I'm here, Amaka. I've got you. You were getting married, she rasped, her eyes struggling to focus on him. I saw the news this morning. The merger. The alliance. I left, he said fiercely, gripping her hand tighter. I walked out. I left the altar. I don't care about the wedding. I don't care about the family. I don't care about any of it. His eyes traveled down to the mound of her stomach under the thin hospital sheet. The physical proof of the life they had created. He reached out, his hand trembling uncontrollably, and hovered it over her belly before gently resting it there. You're pregnant, he whispered, the reality crashing into him, buckling his knees. 8 months? Why didn't you tell me? Amaka, why? I was afraid, she cried, tears leaking from the corners of her eyes and tracking into her ears. I thought you chose them. I thought you chose the life. I was so scared they would take the baby from me, that they would use their power to take my child. Oh God, Amaka. He buried his face in the mattress near her shoulder, sobbing openly. I would never let them hurt you. I would burn the whole city down before I let them take you from me. You are my family. You and this baby. Nothing else matters. I was a coward before, but I am here now. Promise me. She gripped his hand with surprising strength, her nails digging into his skin. If something happens to me during the surgery, promise me you will protect our baby. Don't let your father turn them into a cold, lonely soldier. Don't let him do to our child what he did to you. Promise me. Nothing is going to happen to you, Do-hyun said, looking into her eyes with an intensity that burned. You are going to live. We are going to raise this baby together. I promise you, Amaka. I swear on my life. I swear on my soul. The monitors began to beep faster, a chaotic alarm. We need to move now, the doctor shouted, stepping in. Fetal heart rate is dropping. Get the anesthesiologist. Do-hyun. Amaka screamed his name as they unlocked the wheels of her bed. I'm here. I'll be right outside. I love you, he shouted as they wheeled her away, the doors swinging shut, leaving him standing in the hallway, his heart ripped out of his chest, staring at the empty space where his world had just been. The next 2 hours were an eternity. Time didn't move, it stagnated. Do-hyun paced the waiting room, wearing a path into the linoleum. Other families stared at the man in the ruined tuxedo, whispering, but he didn't see them. His phone, which he had dropped in the hotel, was gone. But the hospital landline rang at the nurse's station, and a nurse called out to him. Mr. Kang? There is a woman here to see you. Do-hyun turned, fists clenched, ready to fight his father's enforcers. But it wasn't his father. It was grandmother Young-ja, the matriarch. She stood at the entrance of the waiting room, leaning on her cane, dressed in her elegant hanbok. She was the only one in the family who had ever shown him kindness, the only one who remembered that they were people before they were a syndicate. Halmiani, he choked out. The fight drained out of him, leaving him a frightened boy. She walked over slowly and pulled him into a hug. She smelled of incense and peppermint. I heard, she said softly. I heard you ran. It was the talk of the city. I messed everything up, he sobbed into her shoulder. The wedding, the alliance. Father will never forgive me. Good, she said firmly, pulling back to cup his face in her withered hands. You finally woke up. Your grandfather would be proud. Do you know he married me when I was a penniless farmer's daughter? The family hated it. They cut him off for 2 years. But we built a life. We built this family from love, not fear. Your father has forgotten that. You have not. She might die, Halmiani. I might lose her. Then you pray, she commanded. And if she lives, you fight for her. You never let go again. The doors to the surgical wing swung open. The surgeon stepped out, pulling off his cap. He looked exhausted. Do-hyun stopped breathing. The silence in the waiting room was absolute. Mr. Kang? Yes. The surgeon smiled. Congratulations. You have a daughter. 2.8 kilograms. She is small, but she is strong. Do-hyun's knees gave out. He grabbed the back of a chair to keep from falling. And the mother? He whispered. She is in recovery. The bleeding was severe, but we managed to stop it. Her blood pressure is stabilizing. She is going to be okay. Do-hyun fell against the wall, sliding down until he hit the floor, burying his face in his hands as relief washed over him like a tidal wave, shaking his entire body. He wasn't the underboss. He wasn't the heir. He was just a man who had been given a second chance. They led him to the neonatal ICU. The air was warm and humid. There, in a clear plastic incubator, was the tiniest, most perfect creature he had ever seen. She was wrapped in a pink blanket. She had Amaka's nose and a shock of thick, dark, curly hair. "She is fighting hard," the nurse said softly. "Do you want to say hello?" Do-hyun reached through the port, his large hand dwarfing the baby's body. He brushed his finger against her palm. Her tiny fingers instantly curled around his index finger, gripping it with a strength that shocked him. "Hello, Nari," he whispered, the name coming to him instantly. Nari. Lily. A flower that blooms even after the harshest winter. "I'm your appa. I'm sorry I'm late. I'm so sorry I wasn't there to protect you. But I'm here now. And I'm never leaving you again. I promise." The baby yawned, her tiny face scrunching up, and Do-hyun felt his heart crack open and reform into something bigger, stronger, and entirely hers. When Amaka woke up from the anesthesia, the room was dim. The only light came from the hallway. Do-hyun was sitting in a chair next to her bed, his tuxedo jacket discarded, his sleeves rolled up. He was holding their daughter, rocking her gently. He was singing a soft, clumsy lullaby in broken Igbo that he must have looked up online while she slept. "You have a terrible accent," she croaked, her throat dry. Do-hyun looked up. His face transformed. The exhaustion vanished, replaced by a brilliance that outshone the sun. "You're awake. Is that her?" "This is Nari," he said gently, standing up carefully and bringing the bundle to Amaka. "Our little Lily. Do you want to hold her?" Amaka nodded, tears filling her eyes again. He placed the baby in her arms. She looked down at her daughter, the reason for her flight, her fear, and her return, and the pain of the last year dissolved into nothingness. "She's perfect," Amaka whispered, kissing the baby's forehead. "She is," Do-hyun agreed, sitting on the edge of the bed and wrapping his arms around both of them. Just like her mother. They sat in silence for a long time, just breathing, existing in the miracle of the moment. "What happens now, Do-hyun?" Amaka finally asked, looking up at him. "Your family, the wedding, the scandal." "I don't care," he said, his voice steel. "Let them come. Let them disown me. I have my own money saved. I have my degree. I will start over. I will build something new, something clean that is ours." He slid off the bed and onto one knee. It wasn't planned. It wasn't staged. There were no cameras, no flowers, no audience. Just the hum of the hospital monitors and the smell of antiseptic. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the gold ring with the Nigerian pattern, the one he had carried in his pocket for 8 months, like a talisman of his failure. "I'm asking you, Amaka," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Properly this time. Will you marry me? Not for the baby. Not for duty. Not to fix an alliance. But because I cannot breathe without you. Because you are the only person who has ever seen me. Will you be my wife?" Amaka looked at him. She saw the man she had fallen in love with in that classroom. She saw the father of her child. She saw a man who had finally found his courage. "Yes," she whispered, leaning down to kiss him. "Yes, you dramatic, wonderful idiot. Yes." The peace lasted exactly 12 hours. The next morning, the storm arrived. The door to Amaka's recovery room flew open. Chairman Kang and his wife stormed in, flanked by 3 lawyers in dark suits and 2 armed guards outside the door. The air in the room instantly turned toxic. "You ungrateful wretch," the chairman roared, ignoring the quiet signs. "Do you have any idea what you have done? The Hansung Alliance is dead. The territory is at risk. The other clans are laughing at us." Amaka flinched, pulling the baby tighter to her chest. "Get out," Do-hyun said. He didn't shout. He didn't stand up. He sat in the chair next to the bed, calm, cold, and dangerous, the demeanor of a man who knows exactly how to kill. "Excuse me," his mother gasped, clutching her pearls. "This is a hospital room," Do-hyun said, standing up slowly, placing himself between his parents and his new family. "This is my fiancée, Amaka. And that," he pointed to the bundle in Amaka's arms, "is your granddaughter, Nari. If you cannot speak to them with respect, get out." That child is a bastard, his father sneered, his face purple with rage. And you are no son of mine. If you do not leave this woman right now and come fix this mess, I am cutting you off. You will not see a dime. I will freeze your accounts. I will ensure you never walk safe in this city again. You will be hunted. The threat hung in the air, heavy and terrifying. Fine, Do-hyun said. He didn't blink. Keep the money. Keep the title. Keep the fortress. I'm taking my family. We will be happy, father. Can you say the same? Can you look at your life of blood and fear and say you are happy? The chairman stepped forward, raising his hand as if to strike his son. That is enough. The voice was sharp, cracking like a whip. Grandmother Youngja stepped out from the ensuite bathroom where she had been helping Amaka wash her face. She leaned on her cane, looking small but casting a shadow that swallowed the room. Mother. The chairman froze. You have forgotten who you are, Youngja said, walking up to her son and poking him in the chest with a bony finger. You have forgotten that this family started with honor, not greed. You have forgotten that your own father fought for me. Get out. All of you. Before I call my lawyers and change my will to leave the entire estate and control of the funds to the local orphanage. Try me. You know I hold the keys. The chairman stared at his mother. He knew she wasn't bluffing. He looked at Do-hyun, standing tall and defiant. He looked at the baby in Amaka's arms. He saw a wall he could not break. He turned on his heel and stormed out, signaling his men to retreat. Do-hyun's mother lingered for a second, looking at the baby with a flicker of longing, a crack in the ice, but she turned and followed her husband. The door clicked shut. The silence returned. Do-hyun exhaled, a long, shuddering breath, his shoulders dropping. Well, I guess I'm unemployed. You're hired, Amaka smiled tiredly from the bed. I need a partner for my consulting firm. We can bridge the gap between Korea and Africa. Who better than us? And that is exactly what they did. It wasn't easy. The fallout was brutal. The rumors in Seoul were vicious for months. They were uninvited from galas. Former associates stopped calling out of fear. They moved into a smaller apartment in Itaewon, secure but modest. They worked long hours, balancing a newborn and a legitimate startup. But they were free. They built a consulting firm that became the gold standard for cross-cultural negotiation, teaching companies that empathy, real empathy, was stronger than intimidation. They married in a vibrant, chaotic, joyous ceremony in Lagos, where Do-hyun wore a traditional agbada that matched Amaka's geli, and he danced until sunrise, surrounded by people who loved them not for their money, but for their hearts. 2 years later, the phone rang. It was Do-hyun's father. His voice was weak, stripped of its thunder. He was dying. Pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. I want to see her, the old man rasped. I want to see my granddaughter before I go. They went. Not for forgiveness, but for closure. They drove to the Kang estate, the house that had once been a fortress. Do-hyun walked into the study, holding the hand of 2-year-old Nari, who was stumbling along in her squeaky shoes. His father sat in a wheelchair, a shadow of the titan he used to be. Appa? Nari asked, hiding behind Do-hyun's leg. It's okay, Do-hyun said gently. This is your Harabiaji, grandfather. The old man looked at the little girl. She had Do-hyun's eyes and Amaka's smile. She was undeniable proof that love was stronger than any syndicate. Tears tracked down the chairman's gaunt cheeks. She is beautiful, he whispered. He looked up at Amaka, who stood in the doorway. I am sorry. I was a stubborn old fool. I wasted 2 years on pride and power. You deserved better from this family. Thank you, Amaka said quietly. That means more than you know. It wasn't a fairy tale ending where everything was instantly fixed. Trust had to be rebuilt brick by brick. But in those final months, the chairman held his granddaughter. He listened to Do-hyun talk about his clean business with pride. He learned that a legacy isn't about the fear you instill, it's about the love you leave behind. Do-hyun stood on the balcony of their home later that night, watching the Seoul skyline. Amaka wrapped her arms around his waist from behind, resting her head on his back. Inside, Nari was sleeping soundly. Do you regret it? She asked softly. Giving up the empire? The power. Do-hyun turned in her arms, kissing her deeply. I didn't give up anything, Amaka. I traded a cage for the sky. I have you. I have Nari. I have a life that is mine, not the syndicate's. I am the richest man in the world. In the end, we only regret the chances we didn't take, the relationships we were afraid to have, and the decisions we waited too long to make. Love is messy. It is complicated. It requires sacrifice. But it is the only thing worth fighting for. Don't wait until it's too late. Don't wait for a crisis to tell the people you love that they matter. Choose love. Choose courage. That is the story of Do-hyun and Amaka. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to choose between family expectations and your own happiness? Let me know your story in the comments below. And please, if this story touched your heart, smash that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Join the Afro-Korean Soul Tales family, where we believe that love has no borders, no colors, and no limits. Until next time.